StarRupture is one of the most striking and unforgiving sci-fi survival builders. You land on a hostile world, construct a massive industrial complex, and fight to survive in an environment that actively wants you dead. But beneath this spectacle lies complexity, from the star exploding, nuking the whole map, to huge production chains, brutal enemies, and a system that will absolutely punish you if you don't understand them. So in this video, we're breaking down some of the most important tips and tricks I wish I knew from the very start. These are going to supercharge your understanding of StarRupture, help you build smarter, survive longer, and avoid the mistakes that can really slow your entire operation. There's something here for everyone. Feel free to jump around using the chapters. So let's jump in and start with the first tip. Now, one of the most common questions is, how do you survive the radiation zone? Well, the truth be told is you don't. Not now. Not even after finishing the early release content. Can we access the radiation? At least from everything I've tried and tested, including trying all the different foods, nothing will really help survive the radiation. So do note that all the edges of the map, it's pretty much acting as a boundary, and that is your radiation. I'm sure once we continue on with the story and more content drops, this radiation zone decreases, which I'm pretty sure is kind of meant to be a part of the main story, as it is kind of mentioned, but I don't want to get too into that as spoilers. But I believe we'd kind of finish a part of the mission and then we can get into these radiation zones. But as it stands right now, just know you can't get into the radiation zone. I spent hours trying to figure that out, but it's just something not worth wasting time on. When it comes to movement, there is a faster way to get around down hills. You'll need to sprint and then press control, get into a slide, allowing you to get down to some of these lower areas much quicker. You will need to be sprinting for it to work, because it will not work while you're just walking. So sprint, booting on top of the slide. There is a dash mechanism, which you can combine with your sprinting and sliding. So you could slide, jump, sprint, and you can even get this sort of chain where you're sliding and dashing all in a single movement, which can help you get across the map much faster. But this is just an example. It's not a good one, but you get the idea. You could look to combine these movement mechanics to get around a little bit faster in certain scenarios. Keeping in mind that all movement within the game will cost you stamina. Dashing will cost quite a bit of stamina. You can mitigate that a bit more with upgrades, your LEMs. Good thing is though, when you are sliding, you do not use stamina. You will actually recharge stamina. That's why combining these two could be a good way to get around the map much faster than if you weren't using this combo. One thing I didn't realize is how to deconstruct all the various buildings. There is a completely separate tool for that. Just go into your menu and check. It might be F from memory, but mine's assigned to something different. But you can deconstruct all the various buildings. Just keep in mind, if you deconstruct something like this structure, one of the habs, all the storage containers that contain all your various items will drop to the ground. But we can use the deconstruct tool to remove all kinds of various structures, and something I didn't really figure out till a little bit into the game. So I just wanted to mention it as it's worthwhile to know. A pretty minor tip, but something worth noting, is that you can access all the various structures through your airlock. So if you do want to just be running in and out, storing things, you should put your storage always near your airlocks or buildings that you're using all the times. For instance, we could put the corporate terminal here, and then we can just run into the airlock and we can pretty much access it without even entering the hab, saving a little bit of time, just something to note. And that will work with all your various structures that you fit in your hab. There is another way to deconstruct your whole base at once, and that is by going to your base core, hitting E, and then what we can do is we can hit base deconstruction. But keep in mind, by doing this, all materials, items, either in the storage or in transport, on the rail lines, everything will drop to the ground. It will try refund all the items into your inventory, or as up until your inventory is full, and then it will all drop on the ground. But just to give you an example, my inventory is full right now, but we can go to our core, click on this icon here on the left, the deconstruction icon, then click on this button, and it's going to give a countdown. So you definitely want to make sure you're absolutely sure you want to do this, as once it's done, it is completely done. You won't be able to undo it, and then everything is deconstructed. And in this case, it's just dropped one box with all the building materials. Good thing is you will get 100% of everything refunded, but it is also worth noting that you can just deconstruct your core. That won't remove anything, but it will power down the base and nothing will function. So if you do want to just move your core, the best way to do it is just by deconstructing the core, repositioning as you need, and that way you won't have to worry about rebuilding the whole base. Now, a really big tip is make sure you save the game very regularly. If you're going to go on an adventure or you're about to set off onto a point of interest, make sure you are always saving. You do have the auto save files here, And I think it's like every 5, 10, 15, not certain. But I would never really rely on the autosave because you can get caught off guard. And let's say you've crossed the whole map, got killed, and you didn't save before certain points. You'll start at your base again and have to make up all that extra time. So save as much as possible. The save file location is a little bit different to other games. I'm going to put it in the description. This is what it is for me and what I've been doing. Since we have limited save slots each day, or once I've used all my slots, I will just copy the file, this file here, and then paste it, give it a new name, use an underscore, and this will create a separate line within your load menu, and you'll be able to go back and check all of these. I do hope in the future they add pictures to these saves or a way to name them, because at the moment it's very difficult to get a handle on what is what. But that's just a tip to get around the limited save slots right now. Check the description for the save file location. One thing that really stumped me at the beginning was I had no idea what was happening with this blue mist. So I definitely thought it was worth mentioning, but I had no idea how to resolve this issue where you'd see this blue nightmare fog mist around your core and it disables your whole base. Well, there's only one way to resolve this, as not even the Rapture will clear these things, but you will need to kill these hives. Killing these hives will remove and kill all the associated aliens that had spawned or are within this area. I haven't tested it, but I'm pretty sure you can run and collect and get chased by a bunch of aliens, then run them into these areas with the hives and then kill the hive, and it should kill all the other aliens, even if they're not associated with this spawn point or this area. But once you've cleared the hives, there can be multiple, so you do want to make sure you are running around checking all sides. And one thing you can do is after you've taken out the hive, you can walk up to your core, hold E, and it's going to disinfect it. It's just going to remove the blue stuff much quicker, and your base will become active. And you can go ahead and do the same for the buildings if they're taking a while to clear off. But that's how you would get rid of hives. The hives will come because you'll get aliens spawning, particularly the guys that explode. If they attack your core, they will tend to leave. But later in the game, you'll have towers, so you will be able to defend much easier against those kind of issues. One thing that dawns upon you quite quickly is that you can't unlock the food station until level 6 within your future health solutions. So you will be needing to eat a lot of the plant life. And my recommendation is from the starting area, walking up behind this mountain here and grabbing all the fruit from these kind of cactus looking plants, which we'll see grow right now. These contain food and water. It only gives you 5 calories and 8 hydrations, but it does cover both. So for me, I was living off these like nothing else, as well as any of the food I've found at all the points of interest. But the pricklies are a really good staple for early game, and there's tons of them located around the back of the starting area. So go spend a bit of time harvesting tons of them, and you'll find a much easier way, and that will really help sort out the food until you get your food processor, where we can combine ingredients and make much better food. One thing I highly recommend doing, which I didn't do when I very first started playing, was building everything on platforms. You'd probably just want to have one single level, make it quite high up, and then just build all these platforms, then just continue with that level for all structures rather than mixing and matching different levels. This is an absolute nightmare of an early build, but before that I was just placing everything directly on the ground. Don't do that. It works out to be much easier to put everything raised up as high as possible, all on the same level, and then building across and out. So as an example, something more akin to this, where your base is spread out, but it's all nicely sitting on a platform. But doing that at the start will just help you as you move forward. Don't build directly on the ground. Raise it up and you're good to go. One thing you can do in this game, and you'll see this tip mentioned all over the place, is you can wait till the rupture happens and then explore the map for about, I think it's about 10 minutes before the aliens will spawn, 10 to 15, which means you can go around and raid all these points of interest and grab the blueprints, all the best loot, without ever having to worry about encountering aliens. This can be really handy if you want to get all the blueprints much earlier, as technically as soon as you get a pistol you could traverse the whole map and get all the blueprints, excluding the ones at the very end that are attached to the storyline. But for this to work, you will always want a handful of the meteorite hearts, as well as the basic building material, some ammo, and then you're pretty much set. Keep in mind, as long as you can drop down the core and run into one of these habs, you can be getting absolutely smashed by aliens, but once that rapture comes around, it's going to wipe them all out or they'll bury underground, so you won't have to worry. it would just be a time game, but something to note that it is possible to get pretty much all the blueprints before you even start your main base, but it would take a long time. So if you are struggling with the aliens or you just don't want to encounter them at all, hang around your base or run around to the area close to where you want to raid, build a little temporary base like this. You don't need the turrets, but you plonk it down, wait for the rapture, and then head into all the various surrounding areas to grab all the blueprints and loot. Now, one thing I can really recommend you don't do, because I ended up in this situation as I built this monstrosity of a base where I was trying to loop back certain materials to the start of the production, and there will be no indication of where things have gone wrong. So if you have a huge setup, it can take freaking hours to figure out where you've gone wrong. And we'll cover this in a lot more detail about how you should structure your base and your production chains. But I strongly recommend keeping things much more simpler and linear. Try keep one production line to one resource. Don't try too much looping back, and it can become an absolute nightmare like you see here, where all your production jams up and you'll have no indication of how to fix it. So for me to fix this problem, I actually had to go back to see what was pulling the items back to the beginning of the production. Because this is a pull system, that's where my issue was, but we'll go into more detail about this. But the main takeaway is you'll get jammed up in these situations. And when you do, go and check all your production buildings and try to figure out what is pulling what and where. But ultimately, you never really want to end up in this kind of nightmare of a build. Now, there is this difficult plant to find at the start, Oxolop. I didn't realize this for quite some time, but you will only find this plant just after the rupture in riverbeds or where there's these sort of water. If we look on the map, you'll see there's a body of water, and these are the areas you're looking for if you want to find these plants. But again, you will only find them after the rupture, and I'll show you the best location for all the various plants in another video. And these are very important to pick up because they will end up being the ingredients for a lot of the capsules, which provide some huge and some of the most potent benefits in comparison, and the longest lasting 60 minutes for all the various different types of recipes. And while we're talking about plants, there's another one that took me ages to find. And these ones will need to be when Arcadia is stable, so not during a rupture. And it's these things right here. So you can see the fruit on these plants right here. Now, this is a poisonous area, so you can't spend too much time in it at all. But we'll just run over and grab them from this sulfur area here. And these are the soul hearts. So see how we have the corrosion right now. If we stay too long, we will die. But that's where you find your soul heart. I'll just quickly show you how to find the glow caps and the quartz, because those are a couple other items I couldn't find for a little bit of time. It may just help speed up your progression. And both of these will be found in the underground caves. Now, your underground caves will only open after the rupture. So this will be another thing or another action or routine where when the rupture happens, you are looking for these caves on your map, which will be indicated as the underground cave. This is where we're going to find your glow caps, as well as sometimes quite rare loot. And you'll mine these crystals, which are your quartz crystals. These are very important for your end game in order to make quartz building materials. But that's how you find the glow caps and quartz. Let's just say that the rupture is past and Arcadia is back to normal and you need to get out. Just fire at this thing. Then the vines will go away and you'll be able to get out at any time. So just keep that in mind. So a big combat tip that you'll definitely discover within the game yourself, but it's worth mentioning. The tip is that you are faster than any of the aliens currently in the game. So whenever you're in trouble or you need your shield to regenerate, just start sprinting and you will be able to get away from nearly all scenarios. Then what you can do is reload as well, because you can sprint and reload, and then you are turning around and then just popping off, trying to take out as many as you can. And then you just repeat this process. This will let you take over and get through so many of the different points of interest where the blueprints are by just using this method of attacking, killing some of them, and then on the reload, you run, reload, then you're looking back and then firing. Now, later in the game, as the game develops, there may be aliens that this won't work on, but currently as it stands, you're faster than any alien sprinting. So you can choose how you want to engage all combat scenarios, because this is mostly a tip for the early game to mid game, because what you can do later is you're building turrets and a base nearby where you could just lead all the aliens to, just to get rid of them really quickly. Now, another tip for early game, definitely when you don't have the pistol, is you can use your mining tool to kill aliens quite effectively, particularly these little guys. If you need to conserve ammo, don't use ammo on those little guys. Use your mining tool, as they actually hold up quite well. And even just using the hit and run tactic is possible, but it just takes a long time because the mining tool has a range of about 15 to 20 meters. So it does damage from quite a long way. So it's definitely not short range, has quite a good reach. Just something to consider if you are running low on ammo. Prioritize using your mining tool for the little guys, these little guys here, and then your weapon for the bigger guys. Now, one of the funnest things you can do in this game, I reckon, is clearing these geo scanners, which upon approaching and activating is going to send in waves and waves of enemies. These scale with difficulty depending where you are within the map. Some of these go on from very easy to extremely difficult. But what makes these so fun is how we can approach and use the building mechanic to allow us to clear some of these geo scanners way earlier than we should be intended to, or at least much easier. And all these geo scanners do is reveal a large chunk of the map. Pretty much if you clear all these geo scanners, I think you'll have pretty much all visibility of the map or very close to. So instead of clearing some of these just manually like this, I'll show you what I would recommend. What I like to do is build a little mini temporary base, because remember, we can break this all down instantly, shown in the previous tip. So popping up little bases like this are a no-brainer for these sort of scenarios. Now, I like to get higher, but you can really muck around with these kind of builds. Now, ultimately, you'll always want to put pillars surrounding the shuttle, and you can just sit on top of the pillars and shoot down, and that is a very potent way of doing it. Alternatively, you can build a separate structure giving you extra height, but if you do build the pillars around the shuttles, they pretty much can't get damaged except for the long-range firing aliens which you encounter mid to late game. They have an insane amount of range and they can shoot over the pillars. You can stack the pillars quite high, so sometimes that will actually negate it, but as you can see, that green is doing damage, but it would take a very, very long time and quite a lot of them to cancel out the completion of the geo scan. But this is a really fun way that I enjoy this game, mucking around with builds and how to approach clearing these geostations. Now, one thing I noticed is that the aliens can jump up onto the stairs very well, regardless of how high they are. I have this building perched off a cliff. They can still easily jump onto the stairs. But one thing I really noticed is that they really struggle to jump onto platforms that have railings. So in this attempt, I just built a simple platform with like a plank and then some rails. Make sure you make a save before you activate the geoscanner. Then you go up to the geoscanner, hit E to start the geoscanning. Now I delete these stairs here just to make it a bit harder for them to jump on. But check this out. They really couldn't jump onto the stairs either, which was interesting for this design. And maybe it's because it's an earlier area, they don't jump as high. But you can see here, they are jumping through the railings, but they aren't jumping exactly right in front of me, which means if you built this a little bit further out, it'd be even harder for them to get to you quite quickly. Just something to note, this is a really fun aspect of the game. Later on, you're just building turrets to clear these things quite quickly. But I found a little build like this quite potent. Very simple, but with railings, it seemed to prevent them from jumping too close to me. The extra height lets you get good shots in surrounding areas. But yeah, fun little aspect of the game for sure. Now, one thing I did not realize for ages is that you can upgrade all your various rails without having to deconstruct them. So previously, I would deconstruct them, go into the build menu, get the faster rail, and then connect it like that, which would take a long time to do across your whole base. Instead, the much faster way to do it is grab rail version 2 or 3, highlight the rail you want to upgrade, and then just simply click on it. And this will make upgrading super fast. It would be cool if we could have like a hotkey to hold to say upgrade all within vicinity or something, and then we could upgrade them all like that. Otherwise, yeah, it is a bit of a manual process. I don't know if there's a faster way to do it. Let me know in the comments if there is, but this is the only way I know how to. When you very first start off, you will spawn in this shuttle. Before you leave, make sure you grab the food that will be in here. It won't be this exact food, but there'll be some food here you can grab, and you'll be able to get it from all the personal storage containers, which will really help you out in the early game. And also note that you have a basic printer here, which will be the first point of where you will build your basic building materials. One thing I didn't realize at the start is that your character has levels for movement, combat, and survival. We can only get up to level 40. And say for movement, you're obviously just running around. And as you do that, you will increase your XP. And once that bar is full, you will level up to level 40. And that will open up these slots. These slots are what we use the LEMs for. So for instance, we'll just drop some of this stuff and then we'll grab some of these LEMs. we need to unlock the LEM station, which is unlocked at level 4 for the future health solutions, also noting this is where you unlock your med tool. But once you've unlocked that, you can go to the LEM station, and these slots here are where we can attach our LEMs. The LEMs will have various different bonuses related to that skill. For instance, this combat LEM increases max health by 12. We apply that, it's going to increase our health, and that's sort of basic rundown of how that system works. Some of the LEMs are extremely potent and worthwhile hunting and checking all the corpses, loot, drones all over the map. It's also worth noting that if you click on this one here, this will show you all the blueprints that are currently in your inventory that you haven't used at the recipe station, as well as all the blueprints where you have multiple, as there are multiple drops for all the various blueprints, excluding a few. Will also show the non-destructible quest-related items like your keycards. So if you're ever wondering and you get to talk about where you're up to or which keycards you own, you go into inventory, click on this button, you can see all the information here. Clicking on the tool symbol quickly shows us our loadout, noting currently you can only have 2 weapons and your miner. If you don't want to cheese certain areas and you want to clear them, a really potent way is trying to group as many of these guys up as possible and then throw in your grenade down, as a grenade will attract them all and does a devastating amount of damage. So you can really do some crazy area of effect collateral damage and take out tons of aliens, but you will need to research that grenade, but it is well worth doing as it can really get you out of a bind. Now the cooldown is quite long, but the cooldown gets quite short, especially once you've leveled up your combat skill, or if you have certain LEMs that will reduce the cooldown. A few quick tips on how to defeat the Goliath aliens. These are pretty much your boss aliens, the most difficult to kill within the game for sure. They are extremely heavily armored. You basically cannot penetrate or pierce their armor when they're blocking, so you do have to use a few different strategies to take them out, and we'll just quickly run through that. You'll only find the Goliaths sort of midway to the end of the map, going from the starting area, but let's take a look at how to approach it. So in all situations, try kill all the other little guys first and then start working on the big guy. Make sure you use your dash to get out of all his various attacks, one being where your screen goes red, which is a ranged attack, or when he's charging at you, you can dash out of it very easily. Didn't show you in this footage because I'm just using one hand, but with a few dashes, they certainly become a lot easier. And the main thing is when they charge at you, that is going to be the best time to do a ton of damage, as this is when the alien's most exposed. But generally, just using dash, hitting the legs, and avoid wasting ammo, firing at the armor-plated arms will make fairly easy work, depending on your weapon and loadout, but certainly a challenge early on. So don't get caught in these guys' range, single them out, and then try take them down. Just a small tip, if you do need to drop or move any of your items within your inventory, you just right-click, split, drop, or use. You probably know this, but just in case. Another thing I didn't know at the start was you can use the analyzing station to drop all kinds of different objects into in exchange for intel points. We need the intel points to advance, and what you can do is technically you could completely circumvent production, but you never would because it would take an infinite amount of time. But you could use the analyzing station, dropping in the various things that you find, say lots of plant material. In this case, we use an unknown module. We're going to split it. We're going to put one in, and we can see down the bottom right there, it says 2,000 intel points. You'll find a huge variety. We'll have a look at some of them soon, giving from 500 all the way up to like 7,000 intel. But we can claim this. That's going to increase our intel points. We can use the intel points and add it this example, Selenium Corporation. We can hit level up, and we've just manually leveled up. And this can be extremely helpful in the earlier levels where it's kind of viable to do. Different items will give different points, and we'll just have a look at some of these various items. So here's a good indication. We've got all the way from 200 intel, and it just keeps scaling up, and you'll find plenty of these scattered on all the various points of interest, drones, dead bodies, and I'm pretty sure the very best I've seen is the frame memory modules. There might be one higher than this, the very last bit of the campaign, but the frame manual modules give 7,000. But definitely something worth knowing. You can convert organic matter, some of the modules and other components into intel to then use to speed up the process of leveling some of the various corporations. I would only really do that at the early game, potentially. It's more just something to be aware of because you will need all those data points, not intel points. Bloody June Awakening, forgive me. You will need the data points, which we accumulate by using the analyzing station, by dropping organic matter and all the various different components, claiming them. We would then use that data point, go over to our recipe station, and all the unlock will require a certain amount of data points. We will primarily be using the data points to unlock all the various recipes and research items. Say for instance, in my case, I'm going to use my data points, hit insert, it's deducted that away. I could take the meteorite hearts and intermediate building material, and then I've unlocked the intermediate building material, which I can now build under the mega press. Just give you a quick example of how that system works, as well as how you can use excess data points for your corporate terminal. Cool thing is with building platforms or even supported platforms is we can build multiple at one time. If we right click and hold, we can spread out a reasonable amount. Probably needs to be a lot more than this, but we can spread out quite a bit and build a ton at the same time. And you can also do that with your supported platforms. Grab it, right click, and then drag, and then left click to confirm. Handy little building tip. Something to look forward to is getting your drone, which you unlock at level 4, which is a huge quality of life improvement, allowing you to enter in drone mode and then delete, build, and even deconstruct using the drone. So if you want to deconstruct, you will need to select the deconstruct tool first, then go into drone mode. If you want to do construction, you go into your construction menu. You will have to select the item you want to build first, then go into the drone mode, and you'll be able to do all the normal functions, even build multiple tiles at once. But it's a huge help and good thing to try unlock a little bit earlier if you can. And it has quite a long range, but does have limitations. So when it comes to upgrading and improving your weapons, one thing I didn't realize is that once we've reached level 4, we get the equipment upgrade station. And I thought these were locked. So for the longest time, most of my playthrough, I was only using these 2 weapons, even though I understood we needed war bonds to upgrade these. War bonds, which we find around the map. So for instance, I have a ton of them saved up here. You'd go over to your equipment workbench, and I didn't realize it, but I thought these were locked. But all you need is, as soon as you've unlocked the equipment upgrade station, you can get the best weapons in the game just by clicking and holding. That will unlock them. Then we'd need to click on that individual weapon, then click on the upgrade, and then repeat that process to unlock the various upgrades. Now, the reason these are harder to use right at the beginning of the game is because they require different type of ammo. The ammo, at least initially, is crafted at the basic item printer, but generally you can get these going very quick and early in the game. So you can certainly focus on upgrading your weapons quite quickly, but the war bonds are far and few between all the various points of interest. That's why getting 60 war bonds for, say, level 5 is a pretty good deal, because that will be at least one weapon or a good upgrade.